Chu Shong Tin, the king of Siu Nim Tao, one of the most important and fascinating masters in recent Wing Chun history. If you're really interested in Wing Chun, it's very worthwhile to take a closer look at his life and teachings. Nowadays, it's often discussed whether Wing Chun is an internal martial art. But also regarding this question, Chu Shong Tin's teaching of Nim Lik, the so-called power of mind, can't be overlooked. For making this video, I've been fortunate enough to interview Spence, who had been learning from Chu Shong Tin for almost 3 decades. Hi Mark, thank you very much for your time. Do you know any stories about the early days? Or can you tell us something about this time when Chu Shong Tin started training with Yip Man?
Chu Shong Tin was his early Yip Man. I heard that he watched Yip Man's classes and became interested in it. I believe that Yip Man and Chu Shong Tin were both escaping from the Maoist revolution. So anyway, it ended up that they shared a flat and actually shared a room for 5 years. So Chu Shong Tin was in the situation of living with Yip Man and getting trained all the time. He did lots and lots of form, and the sort of legend goes that when everyone else in the Yip Man school was punching bags, doing lots of chi sao and more vigorous stuff, Chu Shong Tin said that he started doing Siu Nim Tao form 8-9 hours a day. He enjoyed it so much that he kind of became addicted to it. And after a couple of years, he said that he used to get bullied by the other students because he was doing this sort of ephemeral stuff and just looking at himself in the mirror doing the form of that, and the other guys were working hard. But after a couple of years, he sort of emerged like a butterfly out of a chrysalis, with that you could all of a sudden throw everyone else in the school around.
Could you tell us something about your first experience with Chu Shong Tin, or what impressed you the most?
And I was in Hong Kong, and he was showing us a fuk sao, and he had me pushing as hard as I could on his hand and someone else pushing on my back. So I don't know why, I normally wouldn't do this, but I thought, I wonder what happens if I just let go suddenly, you know? And with a normal human being, you'd think, well, normal human being would sort of fall forward because they're leaning a bit. But so I let go with no warning. To me, it seemed like he was magic. You know, I still can't explain how he did it. There was no loading, there was no extra effort. It was just like he was turning a dial, and me letting go didn't seem to make any differences when I was pushing. It's out of all the things he did, and I've seen him do so many really spooky things. That was the thing that amazed me the most. So I've never come across anyone else who could do that.
Chu Shong Tin, really impressive. I have once that he showed his Wu Sao back, and then he's just stand strict, no need to sit very low, but stand strict, and then with this Wu Sao back, then he asked me to pull him. I mean, pull his Wu Sao here, pull him, and then do not let him pull back. But he just, and I use a lot of effort. Actually, I use a lot of effort and try to sit lower, and then to make my stability stronger. And he just make a lot of effort, and he looks effortless. Yeah, then he can pull me. So very different expression on the way of doing the Wing Chun.
Starting at the age of 17, Chu Shong Tin started to practice Wing Chun all day long. And this was what he did for the rest of his life. But 2 questions bothered him his entire life. Where does my power come from? And how can I teach my students to become as powerful as me?
我由開始教詠春到現在咧，已經有50幾年㗎啦。咁我大概咧，主要咧都係分開3個階段。初期咧，我點樣學翻嚟，我就點樣去教翻我啲徒弟咧。我就咧每個徒弟，我每一次咧，我起碼同佢黐幾。
So Mark, you experienced all 3 phases of his teaching methods. Could you tell us something about it?
And the chi sao was really helpful because just talking about that to start with, if you do enough chi sao, if you just try and relax and remain upright, after a while your body will work it out. I don't think it helps to be given a lot of information, because that people gather information and think that that's going to enable them to do it. But it's kind of like learning to ride a bike. When you learn to ride a bike, suddenly it works, and you don't know how you can ride the bike. It just suddenly starts to happen. And for me, Chi Sao was like that. And I particularly did a lot of Chi Sao in the early stages because I overheard one time Jim Fung told me that just get them to do lots and lots of Chi Sao, and they'll get it even if they don't understand what they're doing. They'll start to do the right thing. Time I was literally doing Chi Sao, average of 6 or 7 hours a day. I was just doing it all, and I couldn't really teach it except for doing hours of Chi Sao with someone. And over the years, they'd get better. Emphasis on Chi Sao, which was really good for me, and it got me started.
知道佢每一個攰咗，我先至休息。咁啊，第二個一路係咁，咁啊每一個咧都黐幾次嘅，咁就預示咗為咗好多年嘅時間。咁樣到後期咧，經過好多年時間，啲徒弟大概都係咁好純熟啦，將所有嘢都練到好純熟啦。但係我感覺上咧，佢哋啲力量咧仲係差一啲。點解佢咁年青力壯？我可以一個人黐攰佢幾十人，可以一次過黐好多個鐘頭，只有佢哋攰冇我攰咧，咁我就開始思考我啲力量喺邊度嚟。咁由嗰陣時知道咧，我因為我放鬆晒啲手腳，我係唔使用力嘅，咁啊以為自己熟練，比佢哋練得多啦。因為我一個人每日都黐幾十次手，過百次。咁啊應該嘅，咁仍然係執住呢個方法教落去。咁啊教到有成我諗10幾20年都係用呢個方法，都發覺嗰啲徒弟又似乎唔多對喎。點解我運用嗰啲嘢佢總運用唔到嘅咧？咁我又開始改轉一個少少有一個改變嘅方法。咁假如咧佢啲肌肉一緊，我就叫佢放鬆啦。嗱，你用咁嘅方法，我親手咁樣捉佢嘅。嗱，你放到你啲肌肉鬆晒、鬆弛晒，條脊骨升得好好咧，你嘅力量就會去運用嗰啲力量出嚟。咁啊一路都係又係咁樣啦，又黐下又幫佢運用啲力量，又黐下又幫佢運用啲力量，咁仍然係不停咁同好多人黐手。
Then he started, so you do something like a tan sao, and he had a way of, he'd grab your shoulder, help the muscle to relax, he'd manipulate the bicep, tricep, squeeze spots in the elbow and that. He basically said that you have to touch really soft and imagine that you're pressing inside the muscle, but don't actually press physically, and there's different muscles you can grab to help things relax and that. So once things relax, then you've got a chance for the chi to travel through. So I teach a lot like that, and you'd feel things open up like a door, as if there was something could travel through.
用嗰個腦咧，似乎唔係想嘢嗰個腦嚟嘅喎，咁我用嗰個腦真係唔係想嘢嘅，我想嘢嗰個腦唔使用嘅，只要我個腦嗰部分一諗咧，嗰隻手就會喐㗎啦咁。我點樣會達到呢個咁嘅階段咧？咁就開始自己去揾自己嗰個用力方法，咁就慢慢，咁就原來我自己一路練拳咧，有好多動作係嗰啲徒弟做唔到嘅，揾到啲人出嚟打到個小念頭為止咁就一路黐手又唔教，乜都唔教，淨係教佢哋點樣企喺度揾個小念頭出嚟咁。點知我用咗呢個方法之後咧，啲人企下傳開去，我反為我唔使喐手，企喺度望下咁樣，佢哋越嚟越人多。我係用呢個方法都會吸引到啲人嚟嘅喎，咁唔通即係呢啲人咧對呢樣嘢咧都有興趣啦咁啊越嚟越人多。我原本咧就喺自己屋企個廳嗰度教，唔係幾多人嘅啫，但係越嚟越人多就逼，咁就逼住我咧就去揾地方，咁啊揾到而家教緊人嗰個地方。 咁啊反為越嚟越人多，就嗰啲人越企就越有興趣。咁就好特別啦，個個企到咁有興趣嘅咁。例如有一個徒弟喺美國翻到嚟，佢見到點解而家你哋個個啲人有咁多人企喺度嘅咧？佢話你教我淨係教人咁企，等我唔使喐手都揾到啖食都好喎，咁都幾有趣。
In the old days, you'd be told to stand still for hours in one position, and something happens when you do that. So he had us just standing in a kind of standing pole position.
不动开始不相信，这个更不相信，能增强体质，这个更不相信。你飞的一般的印象都是要动啊，要动跳啊、跑啊、跳啊，这个活动了才算运动。
He did say you could stand in any position; it didn't matter. It was the staying still that mattered. And he told us to think up through the spine and various other things. I'd been training for quite a few years, and I thought, oh, I should be able to do that because I'm a senior. And I tried, and I felt nothing. And then a lot of my students went over to Hong Kong to live. There's about a year or so, and then a couple of them got it, so that all of a sudden, at that time I was in Japan, and then for the first time I felt this like a wave back. I felt something that I hadn't felt before. So after that week, I went to Hong Kong, walked in the room, and he sort of looked at me, and he straight away started teaching me, which in that time when he was doing the standing, just standing still, was, he just had me stand there and he would fiddle with my spine and adjust things and tell me to think up and help me to relax. Kept on telling me to generate this thought up through the spine. Up through my spine, I felt myself getting taller, and I felt it was a little bit scary because I felt like I couldn't control it. It got strong. Got one of his senior students who, at that time, I would have really struggled to move at all. And the guy went flying across the room. Then he got another guy to try and do it, and I moved the guy. I felt like I was in a kind of trance, I didn't want to break it. And then he had another guy come and put a hand on my shoulder head and one on my head and try and move my neck like that. And I felt nothing. It felt to me like the whole room was set up like some sort of practical joke to make me think that I developed a superpower. It was so powerful. So for me, it was really dramatic. I've been trying for a couple of years to get my spine to lift and felt nothing. And then in that one session, in some way that it's very hard to describe, I've felt different since then. I feel like since that moment that the second half of my life started, and I've been much calmer and happier.
Very interesting, but what do you think? I mean, did Yip Man teach Chu Shong Tin something special, or let's put it another way, the question, was it maybe Yip Man's intention by telling him to practice a lot of Siu Nim Tao, that he knew at the end of the day he will discover something? What is your opinion?
I don't think that he particularly showed Chu Shong Tin anything different. Yip Man actually said, remain upright, completely relax your arms and legs, and aim your mass forward. And I had Chu Shong Tin doing what they used to do in old school China, just to stand still for hours. Yip Man actually said in an interview that Chu Shong Tin had surpassed his level of power. So I believe that. I think apart from having trained all day, all night since he was 17 years old through to his 80s, to when he died when he was 81. Apart from that, he was also just an incredibly talented person. He was a freak really, and he was the most charismatic person I've ever come across.
Mm-hmm. Did Yip Man later change his way of teaching?
Yip Man actually had so few students that he had to kind of commercialise it a bit. If he told everyone just to stand still for hours, he was going to starve, So he made it a bit more interesting with teaching them Chi Sao earlier and things like that.
But did Yip Man himself have this Nim Lik power?
Yeah, very good question. Yes. Chu Shong Tin said, yes, of course he did. It produced this enormous power. So there had to be something there. It's not just skill, It's something beyond just getting skilled and fluid in the movements. It's something very different to that. It's something that changes in your brain that allows you to access your centre of mass all the time.
我得到能夠打通嗰個念頭嗰啲徒弟，將來揾到一個快速嘅方法， 我唔知仲有冇時間去揾到呢個快速方法，咁我就希望啲徒弟能夠有朝一日揾強大，咁樣呢個就係我最後嘅願望啦。
Chu Shong Tin died. He was 81 years old and he had cancer. My school was going over for a visit, and he was meant to go into hospital. He couldn't stand, but he could still stop me. It was really moving, and he died a few days later.